Angelica, where's your favorite place to eat in town? Portland being the town.
Um, I feel like that changes a lot based on, which restaurants close. I
Mm.
don't have any long-standing favorites, although anything Naomi Pomeroy opens and runs usually is my favorite.
Hmm.
Did you ever go to Ripe Cooperative?
No, you kept telling me to, but it's hard to get out of the neighborhood when you have a kid.
Yeah, and it is closer to where I am. It was incredible. I loved that place. They closed last fall. Oh gosh, I loved it so much. Beast was so good. DOC, which she had before. Did you ever go to
I've
DOC?
never been to any of her places. I've seen her on television, but
Oh
I've never
God.
actually eaten at any of her places.
DOC was probably one of the best restaurant experiences of my life. This goes back probably a decade, I
Hmm.
think. And I used to live on that side in Concordia, and we could just walk there. And you walk through the kitchen where they're cooking. It's tiny, tiny. So you walk right through the middle of the chaos, and there's only, I don't know, I think there were 7 tables, and it's a couple hours, and it was always 10 out of 10.
Wow. Beast we always stayed away from because that was the big one for her, Beast. But
Hmm.
that was the sitting with strangers,
Yep.
and I don't want to pay a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, so I did that once, and the food was good, but it was my least favorite experience of her restaurants. I think Ripe Cooperative was the best food, and it was they opened during the pandemic,
Yeah.
and I think every time I went we sat outside, but just to have a martini and some oysters and whatever bread she cooks up with, she would do like an anchovy paste, and it was just like the best thing you've ever eaten. She's so
Mhm.
talented. But I have so many favorite restaurants in Portland. What are yours?
I'd like to say that I have fancy places I like the ones you're talking about. But again, with the kid and the
Yeah.
changing nature of the restaurant scene, um, the only real fancy place that I could say I really love that I have been to enough to like have a strong opinion is Ava Jean's, on Belmont, um, not Belmont Division. Just fantastic. We had just stumbled in there once and sat at the kitchen table, the bar overlooking the
Yeah.
kitchen, and we did the chef's meal, and they just bring out whatever they feel like serving you, and you just watch them cook it while you're eating it. That was amazing. But honestly, on a day-to-day basis, the places I go to and like the most are Fire on the Mountain because I love chicken wings. I mean, I'm a simple man.
Yeah.
We go to Double Mountain, and we live in near Woodstock, and so we go to Double Mountain a lot and have pizza and beer. I wish I could, have these fancier experiences. We just don't get to them much.
Yeah, August is still young, and you still have to get a babysitter, and it's kind of a hassle. So you're probably still in the let's go to the kid friendly place or the food carts, which we do all the time because we take our kids. I mean, I love Matt's barbecue. That's like top five for me in Portland. Eam. Oh God.
Yeah, but again, it's all regional, right? So you live on that
Yeah.
side of that
Yeah,
part of town. I'm in
exactly. I'm
Southeast.
salivating
So
right now. God, we have so much good food here.
we end up at the Mercado, the Portland Mercado a lot. I don't know if you've been there. Um,
I
a
have not.
it's awesome. It's a food cart pod slash kind of community market area. It's all food carts from different Latin American countries. So they've got 10 different countries represented there. And then there's a bar that's kid friendly. So we can sit outside and have a drink and have some tacos and some arepas and some other, specialties. You can get a Cubano or whatever you want from all these Latin American countries, and that's a really fun place to go. We can bike there, which is nice. It's like, 5 mile bike ride, but that's not bad on bike.
And August eats all that food.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't eat all of it, but we can find stuff that he will eat for sure.
Yeah. I was going to say good for you, but I don't want to give parents that much credit because I have one kid who eats everything and one kid, the 14-year-old, who still eats like a toddler. You're always told just introduce stuff 30 times and eventually they'll like it. Well, I have done the same thing with both my kids. I think we're just born the way we're born.
Yeah, and my son doesn't eat crazy stuff for the most part. Although we've discovered if we can convince him something is a meatball in any form, he'll eat it.
Oh, that's good.
Oh no,
You can
that's
hide
a
anything in
meatball.
a meatball.
Yeah, exactly. No, like we had him eat some like um kebab type. No, we're like, no, that's just a flat meatball. Oh, okay. And he just eats it.
Meatballs are delicious. That's
He just loves
perfect.
meatballs. So, he eats soup dumplings now because we're like, oh, no, that's just a meatball inside of some pastry and there's some yummy soup in there. Oh, okay, sure. And he'll eat it's just, kids are so funny.
Oh my God, I'm so hungry now.
Welcome to Film Swap, the podcast where we challenge each other to watch the movies that we've let slip through the cracks or purposely shoved into the cracks for whatever reasons. I'm Nick Voll.
And I'm Angelica Thornton, and today we're talking about Pig.
I'm looking for a truffle pig. Someone stole her.
I don't understand. Tell me who you are.
You made the right choice, being out there in the woods. There's nothing here for you anymore. There's really nothing here for most of us. Buy yourself a new pig.
We don't get a lot of things to really care about. Who has my pig?
Pig is a 2021 American drama written and directed by Michael Sarnowski in his directorial debut. It stars Nicolas Cage as a truffle hunter who lives alone in the Oregon wilderness and must return to Portland in search of his beloved foraging pig after it is stolen from his house. It also stars Alex Wolff as his kind of coworker sort of guy, and his Alex Wolff's dad, Adam Arkin, who plays sort of the villain. It was released in the US in July of 2021. It got a lot of praise. It won an Independent Spirit Award for Best First Screenplay and got Nicolas Cage some notice as well. It was an indie, so it was very cheap. They don't say how much it cost to make. It only made $4 million at the box office, but of course it was released smack dab in the middle of COVID. I know it did okay on streaming. I think it's an interesting movie. Angelica, what are your impressions of this movie?
I liked it a lot. I didn't really know what I was getting into. People have mentioned it to me before because I have a 10-year-old who's obsessed with pigs and just loves pigs. And they're like, you should watch Pig. It really isn't about the pig, right? Yeah. But I didn't realize, I guess I just didn't realize what the plot really was. I knew it was Portland. I knew this guy was searching for his truffle pig. Didn't realize he was this chef. Didn't realize there was this whole restaurant scene in the movie, like the the underworld of the Portland restaurant scene. And I'm glad because it was a nice surprise to me. I kind of went into the movie pretty ignorant. Mm-hmm. And I was really surprised by his character and his background, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So why hadn't you seen it? Just because if COVID flew under the radar?
Yeah. COVID under the radar, just kind of on the list, but never really got to it. Did they shoot this before COVID happened and then they had to put on hold? Do we know that?
That's a good question. They shot it in 2019.
Okay.
It's a really quick shoot. They only took 20 days to shoot here.
Wow.
Which makes sense. I mean, the scale of it is so small and intimate, and all of the scenes are, in houses, or there's no special effects. I mean, it's a pretty simple story.
Just really good acting. I was obsessed with recognizing places and rewinding. Yeah. And it's like, is that the St. John's beer porch food carts? At one point, I'm like, I think this is up the street. I still couldn't tell just because of the way it was shot and the lighting and everything. Obviously, there's recognizable places, but it was cool to check out Portland. This is why I love Oregon Month.
And along those lines, let's talk about some of those places real quick before we move on.
Yeah.
Huber's restaurant makes a very important cameo, and if you've ever been to Huber's, you'll instantly recognize it. Huber's, of course, the famous historic local turkey place. It's a restaurant that got its name serving turkey dinners, turkey sandwiches to hungry workers in downtown Portland 100 years ago. Now it's a great place to go for turkey, but they're now famous mostly for their Spanish coffee, which you always go get around Christmas time, and they set it on fire right tableside. They've got the restaurant up front that they walk through, and then they walk into the back where the bar is, and it's got this great glass dome with natural light coming in. It's just a beautiful bar space. My wife used to work in that building also, so we would go there for happy hour. And then he walks back through the kitchen into the Fight Club. And now I don't know if that exists, but I recognized Huber's instantly. This is totally personal to me, but another place I located in the movie right away was the apartment that his buddy lives in, whose character's name I'm forgetting. Alex Wolf's character. I'm gonna hit myself in the face here if I don't remember. Amir.
Yes, that's right.
So Amir, his apartment is the same building my in-laws live in.
No.
Very distinctive
Weird.
apartment downtown across from the art museum.
Oh, that's funny.
I remember they've told us they knew that Nicolas Cage was filming a movie there. So there was a couple of days shoot there in an empty unit.
So
And
is this like South Park blocks kind of area?
over by PSU by the
Yeah,
art.
it makes sense to shoot something over there. Very
Yeah.
Portland looking. Yeah.
So that's kind of a fun little Easter egg for me. I'm like, holy crap, I know that because all the apartments look the same,
Yeah.
And then, all the bridge shots, there's just a lot of recognizable. The house he goes back to and he has that weird encounter with the little boy. I feel like, when he walks around this back of the house he used to live in.
Yeah.
I feel like that's every single house in Portland.
I'm looking at the alley behind my house and the stoop on the house behind ours. I'm like, that could have been shot right there. The moss and the wetness of this movie and you just felt damp watching it, which is exactly how we feel right now this time of year in Portland. It was perfect. It was perfectly Portland.
It was very Portland. It was a little too dark for my taste, the lighting of it. It felt like Portland in the worst part of winter, which is what it was going for. But as a film experience, like it was just a little too dark for me. At times, to me, it got a bit muddy, and I'm watching it on a good screen too. So I would imagine if you're watching it on a lesser screen, it would look even worse. So that is one complaint. But it did really sell the whole wet Northwest Portland thing.
I was thinking about what, for example, like some of my family and friends who are not from the Northwest, who maybe aren't as into food and food culture would think of this. And I think you have to have an open mind to really like this film because it is a little weird, right? It's weird in a wonderful way. It's dark, but it's also funny and sweet. And I love the story of Rob Feld. He's a great character. I loved his relationship with Amir. They were so different, but perfectly paired together with coping with their various losses. He's dealing with the loss of his wife, and Lori, and Amir with his mother, who's technically, I guess, still alive, but on life support. So he's grieving. I just thought that it was perfect the way they paired them up together and how that relationship was built throughout the film.
Yeah, and Amir's relationship with his dad, is obviously awful dad, and how food is one thing that can connect parents and children like that. Movies can do the same thing, music,
or a couple that's on the rocks, like his mother and father, when they were connected by that one meal that Rob Feld created for them, and he remembered every detail of that meal. That speaks to the power of food. It can't be overstated, which is, I guess, the message of the whole film, the underlying message of this film.
Yeah, the food brings people together, and it's such an elemental human experience, which also, well, go ahead. You were going to say something.
It's crazy because at certain points I was like, what the heck? Is this a joke? Is this like a comedy? Because it was like organized crime over this truffle pig and these truffles, right? And I don't know the world of truffles and mushrooms, culinary mushrooms very well, right? But I was like, this is crazy over the top. And then I thought, why not, right? Food is, as we've discussed, life-changing, right? People take it so seriously, especially in a city like Portland. So it can transform your mood, just like drugs. So then I thought, well, it's believable. This is like what? One of the most important things about Portland, industry wise, is the food scene, right?
For sure.
So this whole dark side of like trying to get truffles and stealing pigs is actually not too far fetched.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of a fun way to approach it too. It was a gangster movie in a lot of
Yeah.
ways. I mean, replace the pig in the food industry with like gangsterism and something else, anything else. It didn't really matter what he was chasing. It's a gangster movie, just recontextualized. You know what I mean? It reminds me of like uh I'll Sleep When I'm Dead. I think there's a bunch of gangster movies like this. You know, the man wronged goes on a mission against the mob boss or whatever, and he doesn't care what happens to himself. It's the same kind of concept, but just sort of twisted into this food frame. Um, I think that I agreed. I noticed that as well as far as like the comparison to gangster films, and I thought that was pretty fascinating. Um, I was also thinking though, kind of backpedaling here to talking about how food can connect people. This is sort of a tangent, but I'm always amazed when I meet people who are not food people. And I don't mean like foodies, like you're going to seek out the whatever. I mean people who just view food as fuel. Like people who try to convince me that Laughing Planet is a really good restaurant. Like it's just unseasoned rice and chicken in a burrito. Like it's good food if you don't care about food, for example. You know what I mean? I mean, it's why I'm kind of fat and like these people I'm talking about are not, I guess. I like to eat. I like to cook, and I just don't understand going through life just not really being that interested in how the food you're eating tastes.
I agree. I think it's one of the most enjoyable parts of my life, not just eating, but cooking, but going to restaurants, shopping for food. I love shopping for food.
Yeah.
If it's like no pressure and I'm like at the grocery store and I can shop for a nice dinner, or I'm at the farmer's market, I love it. I love talking about food. I didn't really start cooking a lot until I was in my late 30s, probably early 40s, just because of my schedule.
Mhm.
And I just didn't have the time. And then I got moved to this morning shift, and every afternoon is like a Saturday or Sunday afternoon because you have all this extra time. It's not extra time, you realize, when the clock hits 7 p.m., but you think you do. So I started making more elaborate meals to the point where it was a little out of control. Bought a bunch of cookbooks, started talking about taking more cooking classes, and gained weight immediately.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a direct correlation between when I get on kicks and I cook a lot and I start gaining weight. It's the only good thing about not liking food and not being into food is you maintain a healthier weight for sure.
I am almost 20 pounds since the start of COVID. I am at the second fattest I've ever been in my life. And the first fattest, I was in a funk, like a depressive funk in college. So like I had a more of a reason to be fat then. And like now it's just because I'm cooking so much more. When COVID hit, I was home for so many more hours in the day. And like all I had going on was, well, let's make a really nice dinner tonight. And when you do that 3 or 4 times a week, hey, guess what? And you're eating the leftovers.
Yes, exactly. And I'm like sitting in the kitchen for 4 hours with red wine and like taking my time and nibbling here and there. And it's really, really hard to get out of that habit because it's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, right. If there were no consequences, that would be great.
It's so fun. And I mean, it's healthier food, but I think I just eat more of it. Healthier when you compare it to like eating crap food, like at a fast food place, or even like, whatever restaurant, or, I'm not going out. I'm not eating a lot of garbage food in restaurants.
Or
I
eating
don't understand.
convenience foods at home.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
convenience food. Exactly. We never do that. I don't understand the people either. I have a friend who I have so many common interests with, and he always used to talk about how he wished he could just take a pill instead of eating. And I would ask him like, well, what do you look forward to on vacations or when you're in a new city? For me, it almost seems like my itinerary is just built around meals.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Wherever I am in the world.
We were just talking before we started rolling. I just was in Las Vegas for a convention, which is why we didn't have a show last week. And before we planned anything else out, I'm like, well, where are we going to eat this time? Because in Vegas, you can get just incredible food. So we mapped it out. First night, we went to the Jose Andres restaurant where he does Chinese food and Mexican food, and they're just on the menu side by side, and it was fantastic. The second night, we went out for oysters and shrimp and steak at Bavette's in Park MGM. Went to, I don't need to list all these places, but we went to a bunch of great places, and that's the bedrock of the entire trip. Of course, my work stuff is the reason we're there, but like, yeah, what else do you do?
That's what you're going to remember. I mean, any vacation I can think of. I think that the top of mind is, oh, remember when you ate that paella in Paris? I actually had one of the best meals of my life in Paris, and it was randomly paella in Paris. Or like, in Athens, people always ask me, oh, what should I do in Athens? And I tell them, you got to go to this lamb chop place in Plaka, which is a neighborhood under the Acropolis. And it's just kind of a hole in the wall little place, this restaurant. They have the best lamb chops you'll ever eat. I mean, it's what I think of anytime I want to visit a new place. I want to go to Argentina so I can have Argentinian food.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's on my bucket list because I want that food.
That's the way to experience life. What else are you going for when you travel, right? The views and maybe some art,
museums, history.
What else is there? Well, that's what I say. The art. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's stuff to look at, but that's only part of it. You know what I mean? Like when we went to Thailand. Yeah, I loved going to the beach every day, but what I loved was trying all kinds of crazy, awesome Thai food every night at a different place and trying new things. And it was amazing. The best thing I ate on the entire trip was like street food that, it was like these little grilled meats that I paid $1 for in Bangkok. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when we went to Peru, the best food I ate my entire trip to Peru was some sort of animal. It was awful. Not awful, but awful, the parts of the animal we don't often eat. Like I think they were kidneys, perhaps.
Yeah.
But they had this crazy sauce on it, and I paid 50 cents for them, and I just kept
incredible.
eating. It was incredible. And that was the best part of my trip to Peru.
What kind of food do you like to cook, Nick? I know you do smoke a lot of meats and like you do a lot of barbecue and stuff like that.
Well, the meat smoking is relatively new, actually. I got a smoker for my birthday about 1 year ago. My birthday's next week. And so I got, just FYI, tuck that away.
I'm gonna write it in my notes.
I got a smoker for my birthday. So that's relatively new, although I have been enjoying it. I love to make Mediterranean food. I love to make Mexican food. I like foods. I've realized this about myself. I like foods that are not one big thing. I like foods that have lots of components that you can mix and match and eat with your hands and try different flavors and textures together. So, for example, I like spaghetti, right? Everybody likes spaghetti. But if you're going to ask me to cook a meal, I'm not going to cook that unless someone else wants it. Because that's just one thing you eat with a fork. Does this make sense? That's why I love
absolutely.
Sushi Train, or
absolutely.
I like tapas, that sort of thing.
Are you a wing it kind of guy? Like you can just throw stuff together with what you've got in the fridge and pantry and just make something delicious?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that's a skill. That's something that you build.
Yeah. And I'm not. I wish I was.
You will if you keep cooking.
Well, I mean, I think I'm a little too anal to be that way. I like following recipes. I can't just throw it together without the little bit of panic that ruins the experience for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll follow a recipe from New York Times Cooking or America's Test Kitchen to a T, and Bill will come in and be like, well, it doesn't matter if you leave this out or put that in. And he's right, but I want to do it just right, like a good student. And I also like the hosting, entertaining side of it, like pairing the meals with cocktails or whatever, just kind of creating the whole menu. So I think for me overall, that's what I like about it, but I don't think I'm an organic cook. Like, I don't think I'll ever be like my mom or like you, where it's like, oh, I'm going to take these leftovers and make something fantastic.
I disagree in that. So not that I don't follow recipes ever. Of course I do, especially when I'm trying something new. But you build up the foundation so you can make those adjustments, and you just sort of know how to make something.
I just need to let go a little bit, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Take chances.
Especially if you're just cooking for your family.
Yeah.
if you make a mistake and it isn't the best one you made, then it isn't. Like I made tzatziki last night. We were just talking about that before this as well. And I didn't make it that good, but it's fine. I'll make it fine. I'll make it better next time. You know what I mean? I used the wrong yogurt and I couldn't find the dill. So I used this pickle seasoning we have. And, it doesn't matter. What does it matter?
What yogurt do you use?
Well, I like to use the Greek yogurt, but all we had
Yeah.
was like the Nancy's, like the loose
Oh, yeah.
American style yogurt.
Yeah, that's too watery.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Back in the 80s, before there was Greek yogurt in the US, there was always 3 or 4 containers of American yogurt in cheesecloth straining in the fridge. And everyone used to come over and make fun of us and be like, oh, the Greeks, what the hell's going on in your fridge? But my mom would be straining yogurt to make Greek yogurt.
Good for her.
Yeah. And I just tell people, it has to be the Greek yogurt. Sorry.
And I always thought I hated
Turks, everyone else. No.
I always thought I hated yogurt until like I had Greek yogurt and I'm like, oh, this is the stuff.
So delicious. All right, back to pig.
Oh, that. Yes, the thing we're supposed to be talking about. I did love the scene when he goes into the hoity-toity restaurant. Eurydice, I can't say it right.
Yeah.
It seems like a Greek word. How's it pronounced?
I don't know. Bill was trying to pronounce it for me, but that was amazing. That scene was so great. Let me look it up.
A pretty brutal takedown of this sort of over intellectualized food.
Yeah. So this guy was a prep cook for him, and he fired him. Rob fired him for overcooking the pasta, right?
Mm-hmm. Repeatedly overcooking the pasta.
Yeah, repeatedly overcooking the pasta. And now he's like this hoity-toity restaurateur. And Rob reminds him of what he wanted to do, that he sold out his artistic integrity, basically, for this bullshit commercial restaurant with a ridiculous presentation. When they were putting the food down and talking about it, I mean, my eyes were rolling. I actually do not enjoy that when you go to a fine restaurant and it's just over the top like that.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, I don't think that happens too often in Portland. But that was so great. And the guy was just shaken to his core because Rob was right.
Well, and it's also because Rob knew who he was.
Yeah.
As opposed to some regular schmo coming in who's just going to fawn over that. It's like sort of when you are someone who doesn't have a lot of self-confidence and is faking it the whole time anyway, when someone who actually knows you, I can just see how that would be devastating to hear that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good.
So he wanted to make an English pub, although he says pubs aren't big here. And I'm like, well, that's not really true in Portland. I mean, I feel like if you had a really kick-ass British pub, I mean, everybody's favorite bar in Portland is the Horse Brass. I mean, I've
always actually said this is the perfect city for an Irish pub, English pub scene. We need more of them. I mean, our weather's perfect, like a cozy bar with good beer and a wood burning fireplace. And I'm there every weekend.
Yeah. And beer that is a sessionable a beer. Cause these big IPAs have too much booze. Like you can only have 2 of them.
Yeah, exactly.
You're done. That was always the problem when we lived by the Horse Brass. In fact, there were all these big beers and we would have 2 and just stumble home. Like I only had 2 beers. Why do I feel so drunk?
Yeah,
but yeah. And I think one area in Portland, this is very Portland specific, but I haven't been to a lot of buildings or bar spaces or that feel lived in, which is something I really want. I want a place that feels really cozy and comfortable. There's a lot of like, concrete floors and modern steel glass. Very
you
cool
want
colors.
something. You need to go to the Grog in Newburyport, Massachusetts, where I'm from. It's several hundred years old, and it's where people would just get off a boat, walk a block, grab a beer. Fireplaces all over the place. The same like wide pine floors from hundreds of years ago, and it is super cozy. But Portland's so new.
Yeah. Relatively. And that's one of the great things we were talking about. Huber's actually has that feel to me. A lot of dark wood. You can tell this place has been here a long time. Yeah. Again, we veered far away from this movie.
Let's talk about that fight scene underneath Pioneer Courthouse Square. That was the point in the movie where I was a little bit confused, and it went kind of like, what's happening here? What was going on there? It was like Fight Club, and they had these cards that I didn't understand that they were throwing on the ground. What was that all about?
I didn't get a lot of that either. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't quite understand what was happening there, other than he needed to go there to talk to somebody to get a clue about where his pig was. That's
So he got his ass kicked so he could get to this person he needed to have a conversation with.
Yeah, like he willingly got his. Obviously, this is not a true Fight Club in the way we think of it in the movie Fight Club. This was a sign up to punch somebody and then get punched so you can punch someone else, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and there are all these intense people. I'm like, are they supposed to be servers or cooks or what's happening?
Like the guy who kicked his ass was supposed to be a server, right?
Yeah. I worked in the restaurant business when I was in high school and college, and it is definitely crazy behind the scenes, but we were never beating the shit out of each other in the basement or anything like that.
Yeah, but you weren't a lifer. You were like a high school.
That's true. I did work in a
you.
place. I worked in a place where I think I'm assuming these people were lifers. I mean, to me, they seem like lifers already, even though they were probably only in their late 20s because I was 19. But I should not have gotten this job. I walked in off the street looking for a job, and the owner asked me to spin around. It was a woman. And she's like, okay, and you're hired. You have to wear a black turtleneck, black pants. We prefer you to wear your hair down, which is a red flag because it's a restaurant, because it's sexier. And it was called Division 16, and it was in an old jail, the Boston Police Department's old Division 16 jail. And it was like this renovated building. And it was the most insane place. I could not keep up. I kept getting cut early during the lunch hour because I was that crappy of a waitress. But everyone else was like in the bathroom between tables, just snorting coke the whole time. I mean, these were like really intense. And they were making so much money. And I was going home with $8 after having 3 tables. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Well, I wasn't doing coke. So,
well, they first off, they needed the 20s to roll up the $20 tips to snort the cocaine. And then, of course, if you're having that lifestyle, you've got to support it with the big money, right? So.
It was crazy too. And they were all sleeping with each other after work. And you hear these stories. This was like the early to mid 90s. Did you ever work in restaurants?
Not really. No. I worked at a place for kids to play at, and there was a kitchen there, and I ran.
Yeah, hopefully none of this shit was going on there.
No, we had it was not
Just
like that. There was definitely some people having sex with each other, but I wasn't one of them.
Yeah. So I didn't understand the fight scene. And I was like, this is kind of crazy, and then it just we didn't see that again. It just disappeared.
How much more could you have seen?
I know, it was confusing though. I was like, what's the point? I guess they just needed to get him somewhere.
That was the one thing that didn't feel like real life to me.
Yeah.
I just don't.
It was surreal. It did feel like a dream. It felt like one of his dreams or something. Yeah.
I mean, it worked. It definitely was like, especially in such a still movie, it was a bit of life. Because it is.
Yeah. I mean, this movie is weird in that it de-escalates towards the end. Like you start and it's pretty violent, especially when the pig is stolen, and it's like really traumatic scene, and he's out and he's in Portland and he's on the hunt for this pig, and it sort of starts to slow down as he's building this relationship with Amir and the backstory is developing. And I liked that. It sort of moves in reverse.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. The climax of the movie actually happens about 3/4 or 2/3 of the way through, and then the rest is aftermath and coming to grips with what happened and your life and addressing you know what I mean? They actually have to like think about their grief. And the thing that the movie builds up to turns out to be kind of a big nothing almost. With, he finds out that the pig died during the robbery. So what he was after is gone, and he has his breakdown and sort of makes him, I don't know, it affects him emotionally in a way you didn't see the rest of the movie. And then after that, after having told Amir he didn't want to see him anymore, he forgives him, and he starts to look, it's that idea that he's going to start moving forward. Perhaps now the final shots are him walking into his little shack and just sort of sitting down and listening to his wife's voice.
Finally, yeah. I just thought it just said so much about Nicolas Cage as an actor. We don't even know this pig's name. It's just Pig. I don't even know if the pig had a name. Never comes up. Doesn't matter. Just, referred to it as Pig, but he's so good. We understand how much he really loves this animal. And I was crushed when I got the news. It's like, how am I emotionally attached to this pig? It's because Nicolas Cage just was amazing.
Because you expect at some point for this pig to pop up again, that there's going to be some reunion or some sort of violent confrontation in which he wins back the pig, but that's not how life works. You know what I mean? So that's not how the movie works. And it was kind of neat in that way.
Yeah. This is the Nicolas Cage. Obviously, we saw in like Leaving Las Vegas. He just does such a great job of letting Rob's rage bubble up in exactly the right amount at the right times. And Alex Wolff is really good too as Amir. I thought his acting was great. Trying to figure out exactly who he is. He's so like conflicted about like who he wants to be. How can he be a success? Is that driving a Camaro and wearing nice clothing? Is it making it on its own, making it on his own? The relationship with his father and that tension. Adam Arkin was great, I thought.
Well, and back to Wolf real quick too. Like you talk about Cage's rage bubbling up at the right times. You see the same thing with Alex Wolff's character's insecurity. He's gives the impression of trying to be this confident, slick guy, but you see just in subtle ways, and then later as the movie goes on, less subtle ways, how it just deeply insecure he is and how it just sort of comes out. And I thought that was really well played, because it wasn't like he wasn't over the top with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it was definitely just the signs of insecurity and him just trying to prove something because of all the real issues in his life. And I kept thinking, well, as this guy evolves as a person, there's no way he's going to be the Camaro guy. He's going to be the guy who values the expensive suit and stuff. He will be more like Rob.
Which means, he's going to sell the Camaro, buy a Subaru, like a real Northwesterner. He's going to wear hiking boots and flannel.
I love when a TV show or a film gives you the cooking sequence. So I love the scene in the kitchen at Amir's dad's house when they're secretly putting together this meal. And the purpose is to obviously break the dad's heart and break him down a little bit. But I love those cooking sequences. And the whole time I'm thinking, what a shame that Rob doesn't have a restaurant anymore, because I need to go there.
Well, and that is one area too where the darkness of the film let me down a little bit, because
you wanted to see more, literally see more of it.
Yeah, I wanted to see that meal for what it was. And it just, we know it was squab and some stuff, but like just the brightness of the colors of presumably some sort of like, berries or something that would go with that,
Yeah.
I don't know. It would have been nice to see color in that scene.
Even in the beginning, when he's cooking up what looked like some kind of breakfast crepe or something, and he gives it to the pig. Do you know what he was cooking?
It was
I
a
don't know what
mushroom
that was.
tart, because
Oh,
remember
was it? Okay, that's right.
at
He
the
put the
beginning?
mushrooms in.
Yeah.
I wanted to see more of that. I was
just sort of hint at that point who he is.
They're just teasing us with his skills.
I think that if they showed us it then, it would be too much foreshadowing to who he is. You can kind of parse it out a little bit, because some backwoods homeless guy is not going to make a mushroom tart.
That's true. That's true. Oh God, I could taste it though. And in that cast iron pan. Yeah, that was good. I don't know what I'm saying.
That's all right. There's so much to go over. We just keep coming back to food. Have you noticed?
I know. I keep like drifting off into this world where I'm like eating at his restaurant and tasting. I don't know what kind of meat he put down on the table in front of Adam Arkin, but it looked delicious. The presentation was good too.
I think that was squab or pigeon.
Was it squab? Yeah.
Yeah. You can go to Le Pigeon and eat that there, right? So that is a great restaurant I've been to.
I've only been once.
It's been about 15 years. Jessica Moss took us there.
I had a
Yeah, I think you were
okay
there for that.
experience there. I had an okay experience there. It was on my anniversary. I wasn't having the best day, so I think it kind of screwed things up for me. And I need to go back. I love Canard
Hmm.
next door, and I just haven't gotten a reservation at Le Pigeon again. But I need to give it another shot.
I need to get a babysitter, and then I'll do that too.
That's exactly.
We have a 13-year-old girl who lives in our neighborhood now who comes over.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, she's only $9 an hour, which is great. But like, we can't stay out too late, and we can't, I don't know. We don't want to get too far away from home in case something happens. She's only 13, so it's like, we have the parents around sometimes, but
Do you have like can trust you in an emergency neighbors? Like we tell the kids just run next door, bang on the door, we'll be fine.
yeah, for sure. Our neighbors are great. We have right next to us and then across the street. They're all
That's
great. In
good.
fact, Emil, who lives across the street, listens to our podcast and wants to discuss some of these movies with me. So it's
Nice.
good.
Okay, cool.
So
All right. What haven't we talked about as far as the movie goes?
I don't know. I feel like we've talked about
Yeah.
pretty much everything in the movie. I want to try the salted baguette too, by the way. It sounds
Oh
amazing.
God,
It's
that looked
nice
good.
butter.
Right. And he took an extra one for himself. I was like, very good. I looked to see if this was nominated for any Oscars. I was surprised that it wasn't. And then I saw that it was a snub. And I read that Nicolas Cage said he never expected a nomination. He thought that the film achieved what it needed to achieve. And there was a bunch of articles. There were a bunch of articles on like how he didn't really care because, he did what he did and he was proud of it. And I still can't believe it didn't get nominated for anything.
Yeah, according to Cage, this is his favorite film he has starred in, and he considers it his best performance, which is saying something considering he has an Oscar.
Wow, I didn't see that. I would say that this is, if not the best performance, definitely up there, with Leaving Las Vegas for sure.
I think he got snubbed, and I'll be honest with you. I think he got snubbed because it was so subdued. It was not a flashy movie. It was not a flashy acting performance. He didn't raise his voice more than once. He got mad at Amir when he found out it was Amir's dad and kicked the car. It's the only time he spoke above a low grumble. So I have a feeling that hurt him in that process. There's no actorly showy sort of things really. Maybe the restaurant scene where he's dressing down his former, not dressing down, but you know what I mean. He's talking to his former. All I'm saying is, you imagine the Oscars. There's no scene in this movie where you can imagine the clip they play. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. They need like an over the top dramatic trailer. And they don't get that from this. I just thought for acting alone, it should have been nominated. That's crazy. And I wonder if this is the direction Nicolas Cage is going to go in. I mean, he hadn't been doing a lot for a while. Came
Well, he
back
had
in
been doing a lot for a while, but
right
nothing.
for money,
Yeah.
right? So he was making some money. Doesn't seem like he was too proud of a lot of it, and now he's back as Nicolas Cage, the actor, the thespian.
Well, I mean, from what I understand, and I'm not an expert, but he made a lot of poor financial decisions and he had to pay for those decisions. And now he can be choosier, and he's lucky he's so talented and well regarded that he didn't destroy his own career doing that. Because if you look at a lot of other actors who have of his age and era who have done that sort of thing, Bruce Willis, now his health is pretty much done, but Bruce Willis sort of followed a lot of that, right? High profile, big stuff, just slowly getting worse and worse into these no theatrical release kind of movies. And that's where Nicolas Cage was at. So he's kind of the rare actor who's able to climb back out of that.
Did he lose his money to Bernie Madoff?
Nicolas Cage?
Yeah.
I don't know about that, but I do
Okay.
know he lost a lot of money just foolishly spending it on crazy stuff because he was
Oh.
making so much money that he thought it would always keep coming in.
Huh.
Like he
Interesting.
bought a dinosaur skull. You know what I mean? He spent $6 million or some ridiculous amount on a dinosaur skull. So,
It's funny because, when I see a film like this, I think how is that Nicolas Cage? Because in my mind, he does such a great acting job that I think he's more like Rob Feld in real life than Nicolas Cage.
Sure, I could totally see that.
And Rob would never buy a dinosaur skull and blow his money on that. He has a shitty pickup truck and he lives in Welch's and in a little shack in the woods.
You think it's Welch's? I was always thinking, I was
I
trying
don't
to
know,
visualize
like
where this
rhododendron, Welch's, somewhere up there on the way to the
Hmm.
mountain. I have no idea.
in my head, it was like down farther south in like the valley somewhere, but I don't know where would have the forest like that. So probably.
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to think of where mushroom pickers go and where they get lost, and I just know that a lot of them do get lost in the Mount Hood National Forest, but I'm not sure where the good spots are, obviously.
He does. Do we have anything else to say about this movie? I think we've covered it.
No,
right?
I like it. I liked it. I like it, Nick. No, I liked it. I think I would recommend it. I want to watch it again. I had Bill watch it the same day that I watched it later, and he really enjoyed it too. It's a great film.
I would recommend it for sure. And I think it says a lot about Portland in interesting ways. Just as far as, you can see it all. It kind of talks about some of the values here in Portland with food, like we talked about. The weather, obviously, as well. But I think also just as a character study, it's really fascinating movie that I think will endure as a cult classic, if nothing else.
What are we watching next week?
So next week, so long as we can get this scheduled, and I think we can, we are going to do our final installment of Oregon Month with a movie I have never seen, and I don't know if you've seen it, Bandits.
I have never seen it, but we have a special friend.
Yeah, so this movie, Bandits, stars Bruce Willis and Cate Blanchett and Billy Bob Thornton as a group of criminals who take hostage a bank manager and his family in an effort to rob the bank. It was shot in Silverton, Oregon, and it is based on true life bandits. And our guest is a former coworker of ours who has a very special connection to the movie. I'm not going to give away much more because I want him to tell his own story, but it is going to be very, very interesting, I believe, and somebody we both have, a fond opinion of. So I think he's also a very funny guy. So I think it'll be a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really fun. And I think we saved the best one for last for Oregon Movie Month.
Film Swap is produced and hosted by Angelica Thornton and Nick Voll. You can watch or listen on YouTube, Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Follow Angelica on Twitter at Angelica KATU and follow Nick at Nick Voll. Share your thoughts on the films we discussed there, and we might just read them on the show. Music by John Michael Farley and Nick Voll.